Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 180 of Screw the Commute podcast. Eric Bakey is here. Now this guy is a dangerous man. I'm almost afraid to interview him. I'm going to introduce him to you in a minute, but you better be careful because I told you he's a dangerous man. And a spoiler alert here, it's got something to do with a special kind of dynamite. All right, we'll bring him on in a minute. Hope you didn't miss episode 179, our special Patriot episode with Stephen Kuhn, the leader of the Vetrepreneur Tribe on Facebook with 13,500 members. And his story is more than inspiring. Of course, this all is part of Vetrepreneurs Month at Screw the Commute podcast. All September, other than the Monday trainings that I do, we'll be interviewing great entrepreneurs like Eric. So please tell your friends about the podcast too, or any other aspiring vetrepreneurs out there. There's lots of great info here and lots of great inspiration for people in business. Also tell them to grab our podcast app. It's in the Apple Store, or you can go to screwthecommute.com/app. That's APP, where we have complete instructions to show you how to use all the fancy features so you can take us with you on the road on your cell phone or your tablet. Also, I've got a big freebie to thank you for listening to this podcast. It's my $27 ebook, How to Automate Your Business. And just one of the tips in this ebook has saved me over 7.5 million keystrokes and allowed me to handle up to 150,000 subscribers and 40,000 customers without pulling my hair out. And if you go to the download page at screwthecommute.com/automate free, screwthecommute.com/automate free. And of course, that'll be in the show notes. If you scroll down a little past the automation book, I've got a special surprise for you there that some people are charging $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 for. So you want to check that out. All right, our sponsors, the Internet Marketing Training Center of Virginia, were approved by the Department of Defense to participate in the MyCAA Military Spouse Scholarship Program. Now, we give a $9,500 scholarship to military spouses and veterans and law enforcement and first responders just as a thank you for all that service that they give. So that's $9,500 for any of those folks right there. But the MyCAA program gives military spouses an additional $4,000. So they can get a total of $13,500 towards their education that they can take with them anywhere they happen to be deployed and still keep a great job. And I'm going to tell you more about that later, but you can check that out at imtcva.org/military, imtcva.org/military. And again, that'll be in the show notes. This is episode 180. And the way you always get to a direct episode is screwthecommute.com/ and then the number. So screwthecommute.com/180 will be for Eric Bakey. If we survive, I'm not positive we'll survive because this guy deals with dynamite. All right, let's bring him on. Eric Bakey might be the most dangerous man in direct response. He's the chief combat imagineer of his visual strategy firm, combining copywriting and cartooning with lessons learned in the military for more fun on the front lines of capitalism. I love it. If you're sick of marketing that doesn't make sales, he can show you how to blow your client's mind, listen to this, with mental dynamite. Eric, are you ready to screw?
I have been born ready to screw.
You're born ready to screw.
Yeah.
Well, good meeting you, man. Yeah, you come highly recommended by my buddy Steven from the Vetrepreneur Tribe, but he says, this guy's intense. He's going to blow you away. So tell us what you're up to with this a unique concept. I've been around a long time, haven't heard this. So tell us what you're up to now, and then we'll take you back and bring you up through the ranks, see how you got here.
Well, I found that, talk is cheap. As a copywriter, you've got to show people what you're actually trying to tell them and convince them of, and vision drives decision. So instead of actually just trying to write a 40-page sales letter to convince you of something, I can grab you by the eyeballs by standing in front of a whiteboard and kind of get on the same page with you. So that has been the effective strategy to simplify things with actual visuals, and to really just solve problems with you instead of trying to convince you of stuff you don't need.
Now, is this an advanced form of infographic, or is this a live thing? What is this?
Yeah, it's a combination of the two. I can do live visuals, which is it literally you can't help but look. You can't look away.
Right.
When you see, it's kind of even programmed into you from a very early age. Your teacher stands up in front of the classroom, and you're forced to sit there and watch her draw on the board, and you've got to pay attention because the test is coming.
Or shoot spitballs at her.
Yeah, blatant disregard for authority has been my secret sauce.
Yes.
But yeah, I do it live, and then if we like the information, taking these abstract concepts and boiling them down into visual artifacts, we can take them and turn them into full-on infographics, video sales letters, whatever have you. But it's really I was sick of the long-winded webinars with death by PowerPoint, and instead let's just ditch the pitch deck and grab a piece of paper and close 125% of the room. Because once you see it, you've got to sell not just yourself, but you got to tell other people in your life. And when you can show them how simple the solution really is with a boiled down little image that you can't get out of your head, that has been the secret weapon. So.
All right. Now, is this just a service you do for others, or you teach them how to do it? And do you have to be a good artist to do this?
It is not about art whatsoever.
Okay.
In fact, when I do teach people how to do this, it's ultimately teaching them to teach their clients to draw it. Because I draw them a very, very simple illustration of what I'm here's what I hear you saying, and I'll draw it out for them. But they need to be able to understand it and teach their prospects to draw it. So it's I'm teaching them a back of the napkin kind of close, and it's completely individual. But I need to make sure that I understand what they're even saying first, and break it down into very, very simple doodles that have nothing to do with art. It's all about that mental dynamite.
All right. So I heard you say you're kind of sick of the 40-page sales letter, but how did you really get into this? What was the turning point that you said that, hey, I'm going to make a business out of this?
Well, I really have no formal education or any reason for having to get into this. When I got out of the Army, I learned that I learned how to blow stuff up and dig ditches, and neither of them are lucrative whatsoever. And so I got out and I got into the elevator trade. And pun intended, I came up in the elevator business and became a superintendent and specialized in escalator modernization. But I found
every little kid wants to get into that, Eric.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how the elevator pitch started, I guess, right?
Well, Otis, the guy who that's a whole nother story.
Otis Redding, right?
Yeah, he was an incredible marketer, but that's a whole different story. Yeah. I wanted to get into the sales side of the business, but because I had no formal education, they weren't going to give me a shot, because I was running big construction work in DC. So I was like, well, if no one's going to give me a shot, I need to figure out how to. I've been studying online marketing and sales and marketing, direct response stuff. I'm like, well, you know what? Let me see what I could do. So I walked into a gym, said, give me $100 for Facebook ads, and I'll do my best. And we ended up doing very well with it, to say the least, and ended up getting recruited by Agora Financial and learned how to.
That's big time there, bud.
Yeah, but yeah, you need a 40 pages of copy and all kinds of hype to sell broke people stuff that they don't need. But when you simplify it and assist smart people in understanding the problem, you really don't need all that much hype or copy in order to really to help them become an assistant buyer of something that they actually need.
All right, so
So it's really been
this is an audio only podcast. So we're going to want to make sure that people can see examples of what you're talking about. Where can they do that?
on my website. There are cartoons, but they can also opt into my list. I try to send out a direct response doodle at least once a week, but I've got all kinds of one-page visual summaries, boiled down business books like Extreme Ownership, The Art of War, Influence, all the cult classics of copywriting. Because I'm really not all that smart, so I have to read things a bunch of times and draw them out so I can remember them. And they're kind of like fun mind maps to stimulate ideas and it's like it's essential education for any entrepreneur to understand this.
And all this stuff's on your website?
Yeah, well,
What's what is it?
the way to opt in is just it's ericbakey.com.
Spell it for
yeah, EricBakey. Or if you've got any kind of special request for a business book that you love, you could just shoot me a note. It's Eric, ERIC at ericbakey.com, and I'll be happy to visually summarize it if it's worth reading. And I probably have already read it. So
Oh, that's very cool. Nobody ever did that for us before here on this podcast. We'll have all that in the show notes. If you didn't catch the spelling and all that, folks, we'll have everything for Eric there. This is episode, what did I say it was? 180. Yep, episode 180. So let's take you back. I mean, were you an entrepreneurial kid?
I have always been playfully difficult, but I've did not know what entrepreneurship was. And it actually caused a lot of problems because no one in my life, I can't even convince them that this thing that I'm doing is even a worthwhile pursuit. When I write copy, I love you, Mom, but I'm writing to my skeptical mother who thinks I'm scamming people on the internet.
Well, you absolutely know when people tell you you're crazy and it's no good, that you got something good.
Yeah. So it was really just trying to justify my existence and explain things in a very simple way. And ultimately, when I decided that I see things differently.
You should draw her a picture.
I do. Well, it's like I have to, because a lot of this stuff is very abstract,
mm-hmm.
and it really, when it's a good idea, it really is very simple, and you can draw it out. And when you completely understand a concept, you can boil it down into very simple images. If it's confusing and long, I think Warren Buffett said that if you can't explain a business model on the back of an envelope, it's not worth a damn.
Yeah,
you probably use different language, but essentially that's the idea.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. I don't care what it is. You give me 125% closing rate, you're my buddy. I can tell you that. So anyway, you as a kid, you're coming up through the ranks. How'd you end up in the service?
I really did not know what I wanted to be when I grew up, and that mm-hmm. continued to be the case even when I got out of the Army. But yeah, I was like, there's no way I'm going to college. I was not a very good student. And so
you literally blew things up in the service?
Yeah, I was an engineer, and the recruiter had a grenade on his desk. I went there with my little brother, and that was what I saw this guy they know exactly how to get troubled youth and to get themselves signed up for stuff. And so you learn the patriotism and pride and all that kind of stuff. Well, I did anyway after joining, but it was not really any kind of patriotic duty. I was just like, well, join the Army or go to jail.
Let me think about that one.
Yeah.
So you got in the Army, and then things started to change for you. They shaped you up.
Yeah, I was actually I deployed to Ramadi during the bloodiest battles of the entire Iraq War, and I had the privilege of serving with some incredible men and women. And actually had a hard time when I wanted to sign up for all the special forces stuff, jump out of airplanes, and do all the high speed stuff. And there was a bigger commitment than I was really prepared to make. Like I knew I wanted to go be a GI Joe, and I got to do that stuff. But then once I wasn't really willing to pay the 20-year price to really be a career Army guy. Mm-hmm. So one presented with the opportunity to fulfill my enlistment and move on. I said, you know what, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I don't think it's this. I'm not willing to pay that ultimate price.
Got it.
The level of dedication that is required is just it's the 1%. There's only like 1% of the United States population joins the military, and it's like the 1% of the 1% are the ones doing the stuff that really. I'm a hardcore guy, but I wasn't willing to pay that price.
Yeah, I
And
mean, it's
they
hard.
really do. You know?
People on the outside, myself included, just, even though I'm kind of immersed, with a lot of friends, still they just don't understand the commitment and the things you got to see and go through and experience. And I guess so many people, when they come home, it never leaves them, and then that can create a lot of problems. So.
And it's romanticized, and it is. It's an incredible thing, but you watch a couple movies, and it looks like these Navy SEALs are super badasses, but it's 99% training and boredom, and then you get to do something cool every once in a while, but that stuff, it never leaves you. And I just saw that kind of. I'm like, man, I have utmost respect for these guys, but I'm not willing to pay that price. And they are, and I'm not taking anything away from it. Like there's more that I wanted to do with my life than just train all the time and for like a moment of glory that nobody will ever really see or appreciate.
Yeah.
So I was just like, yeah, time to go.
All right. So you got out, then what?
I
And this was what year?
This was in end of 2009.
Okay.
And 3 months paid vacation where I decided that I was going to drink as much of my my pay as possible.
I'm sure there's lots of people out there that can relate to this.
Well, I had turned 19 through 23 in like wearing a combat uniform, like wearing my duty uniform, and like I didn't get to have my young adulthood, so I decided to get it back. And I definitely had a chip on my shoulder because I was this hard ass, and I had no real direction. Like I had no actual skills that translated, even though I knew how to lead men towards a sound of gunfire. I knew how to build fighting positions under direct contact from the enemy, but that doesn't really translate into any marketable skill when you get out, other than construction. And so that's where I ended up. It allows you to construction allows you to be a drinker and a hard ass, and it rewards being a pipe swinging knuckle dragging tough guy. And I doubled down on that whole image for a long time, and it helped me exceed at that skill. Leading. I ended up becoming a superintendent and running a massive modernization project in the DC Metro, and 65 elevator mechanics and like subcontractors. So it taught me how to lead and how to suffer long hours and just kind of put up with miserable conditions. But it didn't. No one ever asked me what I really wanted to do with my life. It's just like, well, this is the next step, so do that. And I just kind of went with the motions, and end up did not really have a clear direction, so I just ended up doing whatever else what society told me I'm supposed to do.
Okay, so then how long did that last?
I worked in the elevator trade from 2010 and until 2016. That's when I was able to replace my very healthy six-figure income with online marketing business essentially as we know as a copywriter and direct response marketer, selling all kinds of good stuff on the internet.
All right, so tell everybody how that transition went. So you've been a soldier and an employee all the way up till so there must have been a crossover, or you're still in the construction and starting your online business at this. You just didn't stop construction and start online, did you? That you there was a crossover there, wasn't there?
Yeah, when I realized that I was like making more money on my in a couple hours,
right?
We're doing something that I don't need to spin wrenches. I don't need to deal with people who are too drunk to come to work and are screwing my construction schedule up. I'm getting yelled at from bosses who are completely incompetent. I was just like, man, this middle management thing versus like writing a few emails that make a lot more money than what I'm doing here. It's time. It's time to make the transition. And uh, it was not long after, once I figured out how to actually, the I found that the message on the paper made all the difference. It was like the difference between a $1 bill and a $100 bill was simply what I wrote on these emails
Hmm.
and Facebook ads and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I can just sell more expensive stuff, and I can stop trading my time for dollars. And it was just like I had to quit. Like, it was just like I was 29, and I was like, I'm not going to work for somebody else by the time I'm 30. And I just said, hey boss, I'm going to go do my own thing. Here's 3 weeks notice. And they're like, well, they try to keep me, but it's like, you can't pay me what I can pay myself. And they didn't understand it, and I couldn't quite hindsight's 2020. I couldn't articulate it to them either. But I'm like, I got this thing where I write words in Google Docs, and it makes me more money than I make running this $100 million construction project. They're like, we don't get it. I'm like,
You
I
should
don't
have.
know. It's just the way it is.
You should have got down in the dirt and draw him a picture in the dirt, right? And,
Yeah.
so did you have money saved up, or did you just got to that point you just, I can't take it anymore? How did
Well,
that
yeah.
work?
Fortunately, I had a couple houses that I had owned, and I'm a single guy with virtually no overhead. And the same thing with an online business. I had no actual cost of fulfillment other than a couple
Right.
hours worth of work. So it was as simple as, I'm going to quit my job, sell off my houses. I had a couple houses in Baltimore, and really just do this rather than trying to build the thing part time on someone else's dime, where I really felt like I was stealing from them, because the job required 10 or 12 hours a day, 6 and 7 days a week, in order to do well. I mean, that is what's expected, and I was paid, I was compensated that way. So I really felt like I was stealing from them when I was working on this thing, and ultimately I was not working. Uh, I was not doing the job that I had committed to, and I just whole assed this one thing, which was building a copywriting business. Which I didn't know it at the time. That's what it was. It was just
Hmm.
like glorified freelance work, and I figured out how to get paid on royalties and all that kind of stuff afterwards. So that's why I needed to commit to doing this thing, and it was through that commitment I developed the capabilities, and built a real business around this here copywriting thing.
Yeah. Now, do you just do you outsource anything, or do you have any employees?
When I started, actually, I hired a couple different people, and then the funny thing is, the less you do, the more money you make. Seems to be.
Yeah.
um, Once I started partnering with my clients and say, hey, look, this is what I do. I can I can give you this. I can give you a Google Doc that would make you millions of dollars, um, or the same Google Doc to someone else that would make them nothing. So it's like, how about you go ahead and hire some kind of little programmer, or if you need to copy and paste this thing into ClickFunnels, or you need to do whatever kind of placing pixels and all this
Mhm.
BS that I knew how to do. I could speak to it because I had done it. Um, I said, I don't want to be managing people and website builders and all this kind of stuff. And you seem pretty capable at this thing. So why don't I just focus on the highest and best use of my time? You focus on the highest and best of yours, and let's partner on, like, what does selling this thing actually look like? Let's create a program together, or whatever. Let's what does this make sense together to build? And since you don't really want in order to be an effective copywriter, you need to go interview not just the the business owner, but you need to interview people who bought, people who
Mhm.
didn't buy, to do all this, the legwork to be good at this thing. I'm like, you don't like making sales calls, you don't like doing this writing thing, you don't like doing all this stuff. If you just want to, like, build the website and collect paychecks and do the infrastructure and pay me, that's cool. Because I don't really want to hire. I don't want to keep these sales guys going. I don't want to build a whole entire agency. I don't want to keep this agency thing going. So I had played with that for a little while, but I really don't want to be an agency or be on a retainer model, because I just felt like it was a collar around the success, because it's adversarial, because I have an effective hourly rate that I want to make, and if I'm doing stuff that's not that, then I'm going to be like, well, I don't want to do it. And so let's just get clear on what are the results that we want to achieve, and if I can achieve them without having to manage a whole bunch of people, then let's do that.
Yeah, and
So
then so you're basically collaborating with them, and you get paid on in perpetuity, right? Rather than just paid and then work and then paid and work again.
yeah, it's because I took things from different industries. I was working in a number of different industries. I started in the fitness world. I went to the finance world, and then I started working in actually the finance, the fine art world, and started looking at different ways that you could get compensated for different kinds of work. And intellectual property is a thing. And I was like, well, how do you how like this guy was selling a print that he turned into a postcard, and it had been mailed 5 million times, and so he got $1 for every time this postcard got mailed, and I was just one postcard.
Right, right,
I started looking. I'm like, how are cartoonists paid? They get syndicated these images
right.
that took them. Who cares how long it took them to draw? People want to buy them, and they're syndicated across all these channels, and you got to pay every time the thing works. I'm like,
Yep.
so what? Why am I gonna going to fight with this person to like pay me some kind of rate that he doesn't want to pay me anyway? I'm like, if I go to someone and say, all right, it's $50,000 to have me write your copy, they're gonna be like, what the hell are you even talking about? Like, okay, so let's not have that conversation. Let's say, well, how big of the business do you want it to be? How much? What kind of conversion rate do you want to get on this? What is that lifetime value of this? What's the day zero LTV, 30, 90? Let's have a conversation about the impact of what this copy is going to do, and as well as create like profit margins, and how do we scale this thing without having to spend a whole bunch of money on advertising? How do we do this stuff? Do you want to do it offline, online? Like, it's a much different conversation than, hey, I wanted you to, you're a good copywriter, let me hire you for a sales letter. And I'm like, it ain't that easy. So it was just like, how do I have a conversation where I'm getting compensated for what for long term, rather than just like, what's a sales letter worth? Well, what's a cartoon worth? That little doodle, that Life is Good doodle, I think it's done like $300 million now in royalties
Yeah,
and
right.
all this kind of stuff. And anybody could do that. But did you license it? Did you get I call it kind of scrapple marketing? Did you get everything you can out of what you got, and got put the right kind of eyeballs, and been compensated appropriately, because this is intellectual property? And so it's just like, they're not really, especially when you can go on Upwork and find somebody who's willing to bleed on the page for $5 an hour. I'm like, I'm not competing with that person. That person is going to outwork me. He might even be a better copywriter than me. But so how do I play a game that I want to win? And it's just a much different conversation than trying to compete with some Indian who's going to work way harder than me, and might even have better might have better writing ability than a natural English speaker. I don't know. So I'm like,
Yes.
let's play a different game.
Yeah, I totally get it. And it's exactly what I did 20 years ago. And you may have heard me on another podcast talking about how I kind of turned the internet world on its head, because everybody at my level was wanting to charge 50 or 100 grand up front. And then they probably wouldn't come through anyway to help you learn this internet stuff. So I said, oh, you know what, I'm gonna switch this. And so I turned it upside down, where somebody pays a relatively small entry fee, but then I get a percentage of their profits. And it's even more fair in that it's eventually capped at 50,000. So I get paid for doing that. They get in with low risk, and we collaborate. So it's a kind of similar thing. I mean, I don't get paid forever, but it's still helping them create intellectual property, online stuff, shopping carts, email marketing, the whole bit. So basically, we did the same thing. We turned the world upside down for everybody's good. So that's awesome. So you quit the construction and you got this go. What year did you get this going?
I had been dabbling for a while before I went full time.
Mm-hmm.
But I went full time, calling myself a copywriter, about in the beginning of 2016. But I've been dabbling and downloading free ebooks on on my hard drive and spending money on courses that I'd never opened or applied for a long time before that. So
Yeah, they call
I've
that.
always been interested in it, but I really committed in 2016.
Yeah, yeah, they call that shelf help instead of self
Exactly.
help. Yeah. I'll tell you what, we've got to take a brief sponsor break. And when we come back, we're going to ask Eric what's a typical day look like for him. And this is not the typical day that was in that 3 months of drinking. All right. Well, that's a pretty good gig if you can get it. And then how he stays motivated to keep helping folks. So folks, this is Veterpreneurs Month at Screw the Commute. So I want to tell you a little bit more about how my school supports military families and how our training can help them. First of all, we give a 50% or a $9,500 scholarship to thank them for their service. And this applies to active duty or veterans. And then for eligible military spouses, the Department of Defense gives them an additional $4,000. And the reason this is perfect for military families, and I know this firsthand because I live in Virginia Beach, which is right outside of, they call it Norfolk, Virginia. And we got probably the biggest collection of military in the world. And the spouses around here normally have to take crappy jobs at lower than average pay because employers know they're going to get deployed. And so employers don't want to invest a lot of money in people they're not going to be leaving. So then the spouse has to get deployed and find another crappy job in their new location. And this really sucks, I'm telling you. So with internet marketing companies, they don't care where you live. I mean, you can work legitimately from home and you can get deployed somewhere else and it doesn't matter. You can still be handling social media, email marketing, shopping cart stuff, customer service, and all the other things every business on earth needs. And not only that, you can study at home with no expenses for books, travel, or childcare. I mean, it's really perfect for military families. And one more thing, you can also sell your own stuff and services, just like Eric's doing, with the same skills that you learn. So check it all out at imtcva.org/military, imtcva.org/military. And then give me a call. I'd be thrilled to support your military family. And even if you're single like Eric, or I don't know if he still is or not, I'll still support you. All right. So even though you still get paid for 3 months of drinking, I think that's a pretty good deal to start with. All right. So this is episode 180. So check it, screwthecommute.com/180 to get all the details there in case you missed those links. All right, let's get back to Eric Bakey. He is got a unique business and take on copy and getting it into the public and getting high returns for people. So Eric, what's a typical day look like for you right now?
Well, I quit drinking so much, so getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning is pretty standard issue for me.
All right.
And I get up early and I write for 3 hours. Typically, I try to write more on my stuff than for client stuff, but I try to be my own best client nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still, depending, I take on 6 clients a year to do some kind of.
Well, what's there to write if you're drawing pictures?
Yeah,
Captions
exactly.
or what?
Well, I never start from a blank page.
Okay.
So it's a combination of taking the interviews I do with them. Like I've been having conversations with the founder, the business owner, as well as their like SVPs of sales and marketing, whatever. And I call them my commander's intent interviews. And then I also record and transcribe conversations with their customers.
Got it. Okay.
All that kind of stuff. So I am editing more. It's more copy editing than a brilliant sense of creation. It's the less creative I can be, the more effective my copy actually is. But I write mostly webinars and sales presentations for like one-to-many sales presentations. Build on the conversations that I have with the stakeholders, and then they're being a champion for their customers. So it's that's why I go super deep, and I only take on a handful of clients a year. Because I'm doing a lot more consulting and cartooning nowadays and creating my own content and courses and stuff like that.
Right, for yourself, yeah.
So yeah, I write for at least 3 hours a day. Then I go I wrote a body weight strength training book, which is the fastest way to get unbelievably strong without going to the gym. So I go get a hardcore workout in, and then break. I do this intermittent fasting thing.
Yep,
So
me too. Yep.
I'll eat around 10:30 or 11 o'clock, and then do some more kind of consulting client interviews. But I have a 3-2-1 kind of approach. I write for 3 hours, do 2 hours of some kind of training, and then 1 hour of like one-on-one consulting with
Mhm.
a client in some capacity.
All right.
So that's like I give it a hard 6 for the day, and the rest is kind of playing around. So that's
Like,
my
what's
life.
that consist of, playing around?
I am insatiably curious. I'm a big reader and learner, and I've been learning how to paint and to complement my cartooning ability, because
Wow.
I actually um, I met this incredible portrait painter, and I was asking him for some tips, and he's like, "Oh yeah, like you need to build a real foundation of art. Like your cartoons are cute and everything, but I can't help you because you have no foundational art ability. You need to learn the basics if you want to build on anything." So he really humbled me.
Yeah,
And so
really.
learning the foundations of art and to get away from the computer. I'm learning how to paint like with physical oil paint, and I go outside and do that. So yeah, but I use my mornings and early afternoons for work, and then I have a nice balanced afternoon of art and socializing. Since you've got to like, if you want to be an effective writer, you need to actually talk to people. And I think that's
You're
where a lot of
kidding.
copywriters kind of lose it, because they just kind of think that they can read reviews on Amazon and think that's all it's going to take. But people talk much differently than how they review
Mhm.
books. So you need to go and actually get out of your shell and talk to people, walk around. So that's pretty much a typical day. I don't get too crazy. Like I said, I kind
Yeah,
of
but
quit drinking so much.
when's the mental dynamite? When are we gonna blow something up? Come on, you're a veteran.
That's the best part, is that when I'm doing my training and my one-on-one calls with people, I'm drawing in front of them. It's whiteboard, and it's really sweet with Zoom and your
Yeah.
iPad.
Uh-huh.
Like you can, while I'm doing a Zoom call, I'm visually recording and visually facilitating these conversations. So I'm drawing these like cartoons as they're speaking to me, and it really is like, yes, that's it, that's not it, or whatever. And then so that's a typical day. Or I do workshops called moving targets workshops, where I will like visually facilitate for like a 2 days typically for the stakeholders for a real business, not necessarily one of our online marketing businesses. I like championing um, specifically veteran-owned
Right.
businesses, um, but they typically it's not always veteran businesses. I really like taking under appreciated blue collar businesses specifically, and helping them become bricks and clicks businesses. So helping teach direct response uh, principles to boring old like the consulting day with a high end flooring company, and how to help them do joint ventures and database, turn their dead database into cash flow, and
Right.
all kinds of fun stuff that gets CEO's attention. So it depends on whether I'm shifting more to a visual strategy firm, building that as a real business and as a productized service business, rather than just a one-off copywriting business. But that is the evolution of Eric.
That
So
sounds good, man. So boy, I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure it's going to be inspiring for a lot of people out there about how you came up through the ranks, blowing stuff up, and now you're blowing people's minds. So,
that's my whole encouragement. Is if my dumbass can figure this stuff out, I promise you that there's a lot of motivated, highly intelligent people who just need to figure out who they want to be the hero to, and then get out of their own way. Like they need to get. That's the biggest problem I see, is that people overcomplicate stuff, and they come up with all kinds of excuses for why they cannot help somebody. That's ultimately all it is. Just go ahead and figure it out. Who can you uniquely help, and who do you want to make an impact on, and go help them. If you can use the internet to help them, use the internet. But if you can't make money in your own backyard helping people that you care about, then you're never going to make it online. So that would be my biggest advice for anyone who's probably a lot smarter than me, more capable because I've just been able to figure this stuff out as I go, out of pain and misdirection. And I would just encourage somebody who is sitting on the fence to just go ahead and do it. Just go ahead and get started, because it's not going to be perfect, and just get after it.
Very well said. Very well said, man. So thanks so much. So everybody, make sure you visit the show notes and click on ericbakey.com over there. And he's got lots of resources, examples, and freebie stuff for you. And then, hey, if you need them, it sounds like you better get busy, because if you're in a big company out there, then he only takes on so many clients. So you better get after it if you want to get the chance to close, as he said, 125%. I love that. I'm going to remember that. So thanks, Eric, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll catch everybody on the next episode. This is Vetrepreneurs